So today I'll be talking about exactly what spin is. So essentially, uh, s- what as you if you watch my previous video on the Zeeman effect, uh, the Zeeman effect just creates different splitting in a detector based on the m value of the atom, right? So essentially, if we pass an electron, which uh, we assume that has like if we pass an electron, and we should expect that for all the deflections of the electron to be the same, because all the electrons we assume to be in the same state. Let's say we assume that we prepare electrons in the same state, and we pass it onto a magnetic field B, then we should expect the same deflections for all electrons. But what we see, what Stern-Gerlach found in 1922, is that there's a splitting between the deflections and the energy. Like some electrons would be deflected one way, and the other electrons would be deflected the other way, which suggests that there has to be an intrinsic quantum number related to the electron. Just like there was an intrinsic m value uh, in an atom, there's has to be an intrinsic uh, quantum number with the electron that causes this splitting to happen. So what is assumed is that what it was we use the same formulation as uh, figuring out the L quantum number for the when solving for the Schrodinger equation, and we say that the z component of the spin is plus or minus one half, and while the L quantum number could only take on values of one half for electrons. For exactly, if you have one electron, then the the uh, the quantum number s could only take on one half, and the z component of that could only take on plus or minus one half, where alpha and beta states represent spin up and spin down states respectively, which means that the magnitude of the spin angular momentum is just equal to h bar square root of s uh, square root of s plus square root of s parentheses s plus 1. And what we notice, this is very interesting, is that since an I'll draw this classically, but clearly this is not what's what electron is not orbiting around the nucleus of the atom, but I'm gonna draw it that way. If an electron is orbiting around the nucleus of an atom, in the electron's rest frame of reference, it's as if uh, the nucleus, or which has a charge, a positive charge dictated by z, uh, it's as if the nucleus is moving around the electron and the electron is at rest, which means that if the nucleus is moving around the electron, then there's a z component of a magnetic field in classical physics, because if you use the right hand rule, electrons moving that way, uh, then if you the electron is if the nucleus is moving that way, then the magnetic field will be directed in the z direction. And so we already know what the quantum number, the spin quantum number is, which is plus or minus one half. So which means that we can write what the the effect of the magnetic field would be due to the spinning of the nucleus with respect to the rest frame of the electron. And what we see is, using the spin value, we get that the 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 spin angular momentum is proportional to E over 2ma, which is just equal to the Bohr magneton, as I've described previously, times the uh, spin angular momentum operator, times some, which is with a factor of 2, just to make, because that's what has been observed with experiments. And essentially, uh, the new quantum number so now the wave function has to uh, be coupled, or has to have the spin term, the spin angular momentum term on it. And what we describe is that there's a value called j, where j is just equal to the sum of the spin due to the electron and plus the spin due to the orbit of due to the orbital. And this is analogous to the Earth rotating around the sun. There's an angular momentum associated with the Earth rotating around the sun, and there's an angular momentum because the Earth rotates about its axis. So the new quantum number has to be the sum of the two. And yeah, and which means what we see here, J, which describes the total angular momentum, has to be in the range of L, where L is the previous quantum number from the orbital, plus the new quantum number as due to the spinning of the electron. It's not literally spinning, but it's the property of an electron, and which means which mean in an electron that can only take on two values, and the Z component has to range from minus J to plus J. Thank you.